that we could lose 19 to 20 congressional seats, but we could lose up to 191 state legislative seats.
So Democrats are still flailing about redistricting, which really means they're upset that they have to engage in fair and balanced elections. But the latest concern we are hearing from their side is that the Supreme Court decision will not just apply to national congressional maps, it'll also affect state legislative maps. And this includes not just state Senate districts, state House districts, but even potentially local zones like school boards and things like that. Because let's not forget, the VRA was mandating Democrat DEI districts where they didn't belong. They were forced into place. They were gerrymandered for many decades, not just in terms of congressional maps. It applied basically to all levels of state governance, which I would argue in many ways is blocking right-wing red states from really being as red as, let's say, they would like to be. And when you consider how much Democrats have waged a secret war on local politics, whether that's the George Soros prosecutors who let everybody out of jail. That happens in red states too, by the way. In blue cities within red states, it's very common. The type of nonsense you see in the education system, especially in red states. You ever notice how it seems like there's all these teachers in Texas that are so magically far left? That's not a mistake. They've been using a lot of these systems to their advantage to try to build a next generation of leftists and obviously change states like Georgia, like Texas, like North Carolina, like Virginia formerly, which let's not forget, used to be a red state really at the turn of the 21st century. So this has really been the plan the entire time for the takeover. And now that they're losing that ability, you're noticing a freak out from people like Stacey Abrams and others. We'll talk about that. Although on the flip side, I'm going to say this once again, all of that is contingent on whether the rhinos actually do it, because yes, it is true. The Supreme Court decision enables us to take literally hundreds of state legislative seats away from the Democrats across the South. It's also a question, though, of whether Republican legislatures will do it. And maybe there's some grounds for optimism, given that this is perhaps more of a long-term project. You know, we're not trying to rush them to get it done by 2026. I'm fine waiting till 27, for example. Like Congress, midterms is more important than maybe the state legislature that you're going to control anyway. But over time, we want to slowly erase this stuff. But still, maybe the Democrats at the same time are overestimating how much our party actually acts. But hey, if Stacey Abrams is going to go out publicly and give us the playbook, we would be foolish not to take it. Which I'm going to say to the rhinos, let's talk about this here today, guys. And we also have some of these characters trying to stage a neo-civil rights protest, in some cases even a neo-civil war in their eyes, across the South, AOC and many others included. We'll talk about it. But first, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, take a listen here as the Democrats explain for us, honestly, quite fittingly, what Republicans have the potential to do if we, for once, wield our political power effectively.
Your ability to use those same democratic institutions to your benefit. With these new maps, we know that analysis by Fair Fight and Black Voters Matter show that we could lose 19 to 20 congressional seats, but we could lose up to 191 state legislative seats. And in the South, those state legislators draw city council districts, county commission districts, school board districts, and they draw state legislative lines. And so if you want to know if your child is going to have fair and equitable access to education, that will be diminished if your families can't participate in elections and elect leaders who value your education. If you want health care in the South, it's the state legislature that decides whether you have access. All of the things that disproportionately harm communities of color will now be decided by people who disproportionately dislike and vote against the needs of people of color. But what we have to remember, and this is why I started the 10 Steps campaign, this is a national fight. It may start in the South, but it has national implications. Progress that serves the most disproportionately harmed communities lifts everyone. But if we do not do so, if we allow the suppression of Black and brown votes, we are harming their neighbors and we're harming the U.S. And that's why we cannot allow the South to be left behind. We need national intervention because they are starting in the South. This is a national attempt to misuse democratic institutions to suppress all of the communities who fight for democracy in this country.
Whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me we could take away up to 200 seats away from Democrats and use that political power to break their control over every local institution that they've hijacked, whether that's school boards, county commissions, and never allow them to harm our children or our communities ever again? Wow, that sounds like a fantastic idea. Hey, Republicans, what have you been doing? Sign me up, get on it. Stacey Abrams just gave you the playbook. What a fantastic idea she has. And I can only hope that's an inevitability and it'll actually come true, right? In this case, I hope that the dark, horrible fantasy that Democrats have, this is a dark day for our democracy, is actually the reality and not just their typical fear-mongering. In this case, we need to be the conservatives that Democrats believe us to be, right? Because they always say this, and then you look at the real Republican Party, and what do? Nothing. You know, every action is menial. Oh, we're going to redistrict in 2028. We're not even going to draw it as Republican as we can. But you listen to the Democrats and they say, it's a total right-wing power grab. No, we actually, let's make that their nightmare. Let's make it all come true. How about let's prove them right for once instead of always proving them wrong? Because that's what the left always does. Oh, you know, the super far right takeover, they're going to do this and that. And we just never do anything, right? In this case, let's do something for sure, for real on that. But, you know, that aside, and I hope it happens again, you listen to her speak, and every single time Dems do this, they make it sound like this Supreme Court decision is somehow taking away the right of Black people to vote. Like, you heard that, and it correlates a lot with the whole Jim Crow 2.0 style of rhetoric. But what I would point out is that, contrary to what a lot of leftists seem to think, Black people still have the right to vote in this country, and yes, that includes in the South. And guess what? Under new legislative districts, they'll have the same right to vote that they did before. By the way, aren't you the people who say one person, one vote? Aren't you the people who support, let's say, the national popular vote? You know, you understand how that's actually a super inconsistent opinion, because on one hand you say, oh, Black people should have their own districts drawn out for them, even if it's gerrymandering, it doesn't make any sense. And then simultaneously they say national popular vote because the states, the people in certain regions with different interests, you know, that doesn't matter. It should be like one national thing. Who cares if South Carolina has a different, you know, needs than a state like California, one thing. And then you notice when it comes down the race, they literally support gerrymandering because, as we've pointed out, you know, many different times, no, what Democrats are actually arguing on this is that even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's literally gerrymandering, which it is, Black people, because of the virtue of being Black in the South, should just have special districts drawn specifically for them at the expense of effectively everyone else. And actually what they seem to believe is that Black people deserve more representation than everybody else, right? Instead of drawing normal districts across the board that make sense and seem to affect everybody fairly, no. As I said, it's basically DEI affirmative action. Black people in the South should get a special privilege that basically nobody else in the country does. Because even though on paper, the VRA should also say that, well, white people in New Mexico, for example, should have their own congressional district, it's never applied that way. So, you know, they always, of course, they use this rhetoric about Jim Crow and all this stuff, basically to argue, actually, and, you know, this is not the only political issue where it comes down like this, but effectively, you know, whenever Black people in this country are forced to play by the same rules as everybody else, they start calling it Jim Crow. Very interesting how that works. You know, they did the same thing when affirmative action was overturned, DEI policies, a lot of debates over the education, the SAT, by the way. Remember they said the SAT is racist, all this stuff. Yeah, that's the case. I mean, that's in reality what is actually happening. So again, I point out, yeah, the people, the Black people in these new districts, guess what, Stacey Abrams? They can still vote. Right? Why? Supposedly they're a part of this country. Supposedly, by the way, too, you're pro integration, right? Racial integration. But apparently when it comes to political representation, Black people should be just completely segregated. You know, it makes no sense. It never does. But of course, we shouldn't even really be entertaining those arguments because let's be honest, it's not hypocrisy. It's that these are sociopaths who are just very power hungry, and unlike Republicans, they just understand how to play politics to win. So that's really why, you know, it doesn't even make sense in many ways. They claim they're against gerrymandering, but they support this gerrymandering. No, all it is that they found a way to basically rig elections in their favor across the South. Now that they can't do it, now that we have a fair and balanced form of democracy, because red states get to play redistricting in the same way blue states do. So, the power balance logically there would even out. It's a more level playing field. Of course, they completely lose their minds. But anyways, that, of course, has not stopped the leftists from, just engaging in all sorts of nonsense. In fact, here you have as one example, this weekend, a bunch of activists, BLM activists, started marching in Selma, Alabama, across the famous bridge to protest what they're calling Jim Crow 2.0. And you take a look at these signs. Oh, yeah, just looks just like the march from the 1960s. These people are such cosplayers, right? If it was Jim Crow 2.0, then where are the police? Why aren't you guys getting arrested? Where's the water cannons, right? Notice how calm this is? Seems very contrary to actual Jim Crow 2.0. It's almost like you guys, literally, as I said, every time that fairness, every time that Black Americans actually have to play the same rules as everybody else, it's Jim freaking Crow. We're going to start protesting. Oh, they're being so racist against us. Here's the reality, though, is that much like how Democrat political representation has effectively been rigged the whole time and they're calling it fair, same thing applies to the DEI regime, which I would argue really this redistricting stuff, the Voting Rights Act, is simply an extension of. It's the same exact thing. It's this idea that leftists have constructed as part of their race communist agenda that, we should literally draw out everything in society so that Black people have special privileges over everybody else. And that way they'll be happy and they'll support our revolution. And then, we'll get them to go and march and protest and agitate on our behalf if someone tries to actually make the game fair once again. And of course, that's what you're watching. But yeah. Apparently, they're trying to stage these protests now, LARPing and cosplaying as the civil rights movement. Oh, they're taking away our right to vote. Are they? Oh, wait, no, they're not doing that. Oh, they're just taking away gerrymandering. That is helping Democrats. This is literally segregation. Didn't you know? Okay. Anyways, it's not stopping there, though, because apparently AOC is likewise trying to declare a new civil war or something, as she's now speaking at rallies that appear to be in the South, saying, and I quote, "It's time for the North to pull up to the South." So there you have that.
To make sure that we all understand that Montgomery is not alone, that you all are not alone. And for all of those watching today, when they ask, what do we do in this moment? I feel helpless. What action can I take? It is time for the North to pull up to the South. It is time for New York to pull up to Alabama. It is time for all of us to come to Georgia, to Louisiana, to Tennessee, to Mississippi, and let them know exactly what they have uncorked with this injustice. They think they can draw us out of power. They do not know the sleeping giant that they just awakened.
Yeah, so following in the long-standing trend of leftists glorifying violence, it seems pretty undeniable to me that she's trying to play into some type of Civil War LARP. And if you ever hear leftists speak, especially on Reddit and places like that, you'll see these themes quite a bit, where the only time that libtards get patriotic is when it comes to something like idealizing John Brown, who, by the way, murdered a bunch of innocent people and was a terrorist. But still, they glorify John Brown. They basically, the only patriotic feeling they have is towards the Civil War. And understand the real reason for that is because, like I said, they have this power fantasy effectively about killing the right-wingers, killing the conservatives, who still to this day very often concentrate in the South. And so that's what it's about, right? But even that aside, even if we're going to say, no, Vince, that's not the point that she's making, okay, let's take it in 100% good faith then. So AOC's argument is that outside people from other states who have no interest here, right? Like people from New York, basically, should come down to Alabama and influence the politics there and basically tell the people of Alabama, oh, this is the way you need to feel. That's what she's saying. People from the north should travel to southern states in order to go protest. But by the way, let's not forget, it's a complete conspiracy theory to say, oh, no King's protests are staged. They're astroturfed. They literally bust people in. That's exactly right now what she's calling for. And what a ridiculous opinion to have, right? That's what everyone wants. Oh yeah, when I'm going to vote in my local election, what I want is from people on the other side of the country to come in and scream at me and literally protest and demand that my politics be a certain way. That's just so insane, right? If we're gonna, okay, fine. It's time for the South to pull up on the North then, you know? Let's have a bunch of MAGA conservatives not from New York City, but let's just go there anyway and say, oh, this is our place now. Yeah, we're going to protest. And you're going to say, what? You're not even from here. What are you doing? You're just an outsider here to agitate. No, we're not. No, we're not. Actually, we have a full right to determine what the politics of your city are, even though we don't freaking live here. And what an amazing, compelling argument, right? The leftists on this issue are coming into states where they don't live and basically demanding that their politics be a certain way, and they're admitting they're outsiders, right? Which I guess is true on many levels, right? Leftism fundamentally is an outside foreign ideology. It doesn't belong in your community. It's not native to your community, to your country, to your state, to your whatever, right? And yeah, you should want it to stay out. Yeah, who are these outside invaders in our country? That's exactly what it is. But anyways, what a bunch of fools. Nonetheless, I just hope that, as I said, Republicans make all of the dark nightmares of leftists on this stuff like come true. You know, that's really our mandate in this moment. You see how pissed off they are about it. You see how they've effectively already weaponized people's psychosis or the outrage or whatever of the leftist base. Okay. So that political backlash has basically come already. It's happening anyway. So you have one of two things, Republican legislators. You can either be so scared of the No Kings protesters who are protesting you anyway, or you can say, okay, well, we already sort of kicked up a hornet's nest, quote unquote. It's not really a hornet's nest. It's more like a ant hive or something. Not red ants, just like regular black ants. But, okay, we sort of like pissed off the left on this issue. But yeah, to an extent, you could say there's no going back, whatever. But that's why now we just have to go full steam ahead, right? Do everything. They already said that we're doing it. They already told their people that we're doing it. So there's nothing really politically to lose or quote unquote make people mad. Just do it, right? Redraw all the maps, congressional and statewide. Absolutely 100%. You might say, oh, but what if the leftists get mad and go vote in the next election? I don't know how to tell you this. They're already going to have high turnout in the midterms. The only way we can counter is if Republicans maybe give their base their own reasons, perhaps to be excited, number one. And number two, by the way, that's what you have the new districts for, right? They're going to say, oh no, we're going to show up in the election and we're going to protest. We're going to make our voices heard. Uh-oh, we can't do that because our district is redrawn. There you go. That's what you got to do. So let's just hope that it's contrary to what they usually do. The Republican Party has some sense of self-preservation. They have some idea of, oh, this is best for us. It's going to further our power. The project of politics, the objective of politics is to win, and we need to play to win. But I feel like I've said that a million times now. Let's get it done, guys. They've given us some great ideas. Credit to them. All right, that said, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.